Um, Now, before I go to the limited verifiability case, let me just sort of say a few words about this model. The application of game theory in understanding contract design, because here we are using how contract can be written to change the incentives and the equilibrium outcome in the follow-up game, right? So here contract is changing behavior. So this idea that contract can be used to understand various contexts where game theory is applicable is a big line of research, and it's a big field. And contract theory itself uses a lot of game theoretic game theoretic concepts to explain how contracts gets written. Um, these kind of context where both firms are engaging in contract writing before taking some kind of strategic decision is quite prevalent. Okay, so not just think about banks hiring construction firm context, but also think about, say, uh, um, certain firms outsourcing certain works to consulting firms. So there are a lot of consulting firms that get a lot of projects from other firms. So maybe some firm is facing some kind of problem. They hire some consulting firm to do their to sort of analyze and tell them what to do. Now, in this case, the consulting firm who have to invest in understanding the specific sector that this client firm is operating in, and the specific details of the client firm. So that's the investment on the part of the consulting firm to sort of know more about the contextual details. And the from the client firm's point of view, the client firm would also invest in preparing the right information and documents that the consulting firm needs in order to prepare the sort of right analysis and write the best report that they could write. So they need to sort of, both the client firm need to allocate some people who will produce all this information for for the consulting firm, and the consulting firm also needs to allocate some people who will invest time to sort of know a lot about the sector and then the operation of the client firm. Okay, so it's a sort of, again, it's a pairwise investment scenario where there's this incentive to not to invest and sort of write a sub average quality report and get charge the client for money for it, right? So again, they, before they go into actual decision of investing and how much, they write down a contract. So when a client firm hires a consulting firm, they probably write down a contract specifying the conditions under which one might take the other party to court if they think that the other party hasn't done the right amount of investment. Okay, um, say Ashoka University is hiring the food services firm which will prepare the meals for the students. Okay, again, the this food services firm would have to invest in understanding where to source its produce that will be suitable to the tastes and preferences of the student population. And the Ashoka University has to invest in designing the kitchen that is sort of in line with what the food services firm wants, right? So there's again both investment from both sides. And again, they would probably write down a contract before they make their respective investments, where they'll write down conditions under which they'll think that the other party has not taken the efficient action and can therefore take them to the court. Okay, so these are various contexts where one can think where contract writing can actually change the incentive of the players going forward. And understanding how the contract gets written, what are the information that, what are the conditions that the parties will indeed write down, will put down on a contract to ensure that efficient action gets taken later, are the study of contract theory, which is sort of a subfield within applied game theory. In fact, a lot of researchers indeed study law and economics as a field of study, where contract theory sort of occupies a big part. There's a researcher in Delhi School of Economics named Ram Singh, who's a professor there, who works on these kind of topics, sort of breach of contract, and remedies and their sort of Nash equilibrium applications of these kind of contexts. Okay, so if you're interested, you can look up his research and the other research on this area. Okay, so that's sort of what I wanted to say about contract theory and game theory. So let's talk about the limited verifiability case. So suppose that court cannot verify all the information that is laid out in the contract, but can only verify up to a limited point. So limited verifiability. Limited verifiability by court. So what is this specific limitation? So let's say that court can look at the final outcome. So in this case, say the regional center of the actual construction, and can check whether it was up to the mark or not. So it can check whether both parties invested and produced the efficient outcome, or it was not efficient. So at least one party's violated the condition. But the court doesn't have the capacity or doesn't have the sort of paper trail, enough paper trail or evidence to pinpoint who exactly is the violating party. So who's the one who did not invest? Court cannot see that. Suppose there is no way for court to know for sure who's the one who's violating. Okay, so suppose that's the case. So suppose court can verify if any player didn't invest. Suppose court can verify if any player didn't invest, but cannot verify who specifically violated the contract. So basically, court cannot, in the context of this model, the court cannot distinguish between among NI, IN, NN. Okay, the court cannot distinguish between these three, but court can distinguish either whether II has happened or II has not happened. If II has not happened, then one of the three has happened, so at least one party has violated, but it doesn't know which party has violated or both have violated. Okay, so it can check only II or not II. Okay, so that's the limited nature of verifiability by the court. Okay, so what court can say is that in case anybody doesn't verify, if I see that it's not II, then I'll compel the firm 1 to pay firm 2 3. Okay, because I don't see any I have no way of checking who's the one that is the violator. But given that it's the firm 1 who has the sort of incentive to deviate, if I see a violation, I'll compel firm 1 to pay firm 2 3. Okay, so court cannot distinguish among the three. If violation happens, then court compels firm 1 to pay firm 2 3 units of payoffs. Notice in the previous case, in full verifiability case, court could check whether it's the firm 1 or firm 2 as the violator, and sort of decide the payment accordingly. Okay, but here court is saying that anytime I see some violation, because I can't distinguish, I'll compel firm 1 to pay firm 2. Okay, so now the payoff, how that, the question is how that will change the payoff, because it will change the payoff in a different way than in the previous case. Okay, so let's see. So let me write down the payoff matrix again. Investment not investment, investment not investment. So court can distinguish II, so payoff here is still 88. Previously payoff was minus 44. Now notice, in presence of, if it's IN, even if construction firm invests but the bank doesn't, even then court will compel the construction firm to pay the bank, right? So here from minus 4 it will be minus 7, because construction firm is paying in any case, because court can't check who's the violator, and bank will pay off will be 7. Here it will be 7 1, and here it will be, it was 0 0 initially, so it will be minus 3 3. Okay, now if you check the Nash equilibrium, it is still true that even in non-verifiability case, investment is remains the Nash equilibrium. So investment is still the Nash equilibrium. Okay, you can check it very clearly, very easily. But I have a point to make. The point is that when there is limited verifiability, you see this payment by the second firm is not quite high. It's closer to the investment payment. Okay, so in case the penalty structure is not set correctly, it could be the case that this number becomes higher than this number. In case that happens, then while fixing this incentive problem, you will create another incentive problem here for the bank. Now bank knows, so here is the idea, the bank initially didn't have an incentive to not invest, but now in presence of limited verifiability, bank knows that if bank violates the condition, the court cannot check that it's the bank who's the violator, so court will compel the construction company to pay the bank. So that actually increases the incentive of the firm to consider whether it wants to violate and get money from the construction company. Okay, so if I had written down some other payoff matrix initially, so suppose the initial payoff matrix was something different. So suppose it was like this: 8 8, you have 0 0, you have 11 minus 2, and you have 6 6. So still it is the case that, so it is, suppose it is the initial game. Now suppose court, you have limited verifiability, so suppose court imposes penalty 3 under limited verifiability, Then what will be the payoff? It will be 8 1, and it will be minus 9 9, and it will be minus 3 3, right? So firm 1 pays firm 2 3, okay, whenever it is not II, because that's the only thing that the court can check. Now notice that this is no longer the Nash equilibrium, because the payoff here has become 9. Notice, and that's the least amount of, so this penalty 3 is not too high, because that's the least amount of penalty you need to check this in, to correct this incentive problem, right? So with penalty 3 from 11, it has become 8, which is just enough to make player 1 indifferent between investing and not investing when player 2 invests. Okay, so investing by player 1 is now a part of best response, and that's the minimum penalty you need on non-investment to make player 1 choose investment as best response. But with 3 payment, it actually for player 2, so while solving player 1's incentive problem, you create player 2's incentive problem. So instead of 8, now player 1 will get 9 by violating the contract. So in case of limited verifiability, it may be very hard, if not impossible, to solve the incentive problem, because if you sort of want to impose a high penalty to sort of dissuade one party to not take the bad action, it may start putting high incentive on the other party to start taking the bad action, right? So that's the problem with limited verifiability. Okay, so with limited verifiability, it may be impossible to solve the incentive problem. It depends on the payoff structure. Okay, and so that's where this example ends. So I would say go back to the Joel Watson book and read up this chapter 11. It has a nice sort of explanation of this issue, and this also basically concludes our discussion of various applications of game theory. So we have covered politics, so the median voter theorem, and its sort of allied concepts, Hoteling's lemma, in the context of firms choosing location on a street. And the second application was about governance, so police choosing law enforcement and to stop crime. The third application was today, which was about oligopoly, so we talked about the Batra model primarily. And the fourth application is in the context of contract theory, and to understand how contracts can solve incentive problems arising in game theoretic context, provided courts have full verifiability of all the conditions written down in the court. Okay, with limited verifiability, we have discussed how it may or may not be possible to solve that problem. So that sort of broadly covers a nice range of areas where you can apply game theory. There are a lot of other areas where game theory can be applied, and one can actually have a course fully dedicated to just understanding various applications of game theory. But we need to move on. So let me stop here. As of now, in the next class we will start talking about a new concept. Okay, and we'll meet on Tuesday morning to sort of discuss all your doubts regarding these applications. Okay, so talk to you then. Bye.